Hello and welcome to our Librarians of the Citadel Game of Thrones Roundtable. Today we're discussing the Queen's Justice. And I noticed this morning, I thought of, we never ever give spoiler warnings, but obviously spoilers. If you haven't watched the episode, you were about to learn everything about the episode. But before we get started, we wanted to do our little plugs. So our third and final Game of Thrones book discussion is this Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. Very exciting. The last part of Game of Thrones, a lot of stuff happens in there. Should be a good discussion. We have a historian coming in to discuss The Tudors with us. It's a program that kind of connects our Victoria Game of Thrones programming, because a lot of George R.R. Martin's inspiration comes from English history. So that should be really exciting, and that is Monday the 7th, so next Monday at 7 p.m. And our Game of Thrones summer finale feast, very exciting. So we're going to have a big feast, a big potluck feast on August 19th, and we are going to have copies of the Game of Thrones official cookbook available at the reference desk for you to peruse recipes if you want to contribute an official Game of Thrones recipe. We have a little link that we'll put in the comments. That we'll put in the comments. Noelle is entering, but everybody's here. That we'll put in the comments of our of this video. So if you want to check out the form to submit a recipe, and that'll be Saturday the 19th at 2 p.m. here at the main library. So now that everybody's here, let's jump in, because this was a fun episode. Mm-hmm. So
it was finally fun.
It was. I mean, I liked the previous two episodes, but I feel like things are really...
It was fun the entire time.
It was fun the entire time, and things are moving quickly.
I just finished it in my car.
So we got, first impressions. So we got our first meeting between Jon Snow and Daenerys, and I kind of thought that they were going to dangle this a little bit, that we'd get, Jon walking up to Dragonstone at, the last 5 minutes, but instead it, started right off the bat.
Right.
I was a little nervous, though, when I saw the kind of imposing welcoming party of Dothraki. The fact that they made him, give up his weapons right away. And it was nice to see Jon and Tyrion together again, though. A lot of, season 1 flashbacks. And, like that bastard of Winterfell. Dwarf of Casterly Rock.
They're brooding together.
Yeah, they're brooding together on the cliff. So there were a couple interesting things about that opening. One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting was that Missandei was introduced as the Queen's most trusted advisor, and I was sitting there what does she know about Westeros? So she can give advice, but she doesn't really have the knowledge or wisdom. In the past, I felt like she'd always been introduced as the translator. Mm-hmm. Which would still be her main function, right?
Right.
But I don't know. Or maybe now that mostly everybody
knows about Westeros.
He does. Mm-hmm. He does. It's not doing them a heck of a lot of good so far. We'll get to that. We'll get to that later. But yeah, and the dragons were flying around dragon.
Yeah.
It was her full show of force. Mm-hmm. To welcome this one man,
the king of the north.
Yeah, and he's, and Missandei with her big long, mother of dragons, breaker of chains, queen Talassia of the Dothraki Sea, all the titles. And then Sir Davos, this is Jon Snow.
King of the north. That was the best.
So what did you guys think of that scene when he walks in and Dany's on the throne with all her impressiveness, and he's just kind of who he is?
Right. Definitely grown.
Yeah.
At first I was a little disappointed. I don't know what I wanted, but the more it played out, the more I felt as if it was a real reaction. Jon Snow, we know what he's been through, and he walks in, and it's just okay, let's get to the point.
Yeah, he's unfazed by all of it.
She's playing the game, and he sees the bigger threat.
Exactly.
I think she's having some trouble. I think so far a lot of she hasn't succeeded in anything she's done so far, and I think she needs to convince not only herself but everyone else that she's there, and she feels that she deserves to be empowered. And, you know, I think she's putting up this front to be able to, you know, figure that out. But I think their second meeting, she was kind of able to pull that back a bit. I know I'm skipping ahead of it, but
That's okay. We don't have to go in chronological order.
but I was a little disappointed with her specifically in that scene. Just this front that she's putting up, but I think I think she's justified in that.
Yeah, I mean, it did feel to me too like she was putting on this big, like, and part of me was like, but you're not queen of anything yet. You know, and it's all good to go around and talk to yourself, you know, say, I'm the queen, I'm the queen, I'm the queen, but you haven't really conquered anything. She doesn't know yet that she's lost a major ally or a couple of major allies.
Right.
But, you know, it got kind of the feeling of, well, you haven't really earned that yet. And one of the ways, you know, she could earn Jon Snow's respect would be to, you know, kind of welcome him and not try to be imposing, because otherwise she just comes across as kind of like this entitled sort of, I'm a Targaryen, so you must bend the knee.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, we get annoyed though too, because we know Jon Snow, we know his past, we've been with him, you know, and she's now meeting him for the first time, so I think we have to put in perspective the fact that, like, we know Jon Snow, we know his character, we've been hanging out with him way longer. Like, Danny, come on,
But we also know Daenerys has passed a lot. And I think she had a great speech kind of telling him what she's been through, and especially Tyrion's speech with him, or Tyrion's conversation with him as well, really, like, displayed her character and showed what exactly she's been through and why she feels entitled.
Well, I think the thing is that we see, you know, how Jon Snow is just like, say, get to the point, I've got this. He doesn't want the throne. He, like, you know, he doesn't want to rule over everybody. I don't think, you know, I think he's just like, I want to protect these people. I don't care about all the bravado. You know, so that's what I'm saying. Is it seemed almost more ridiculous because she's putting on this show for Jon Snow.
Right, it would be like you would understand if she were putting on the show for like Cersei or like Jaime or somebody else who was like somebody who needs to be impressed by that. And the only reason Jon Snow won't bend the knee is because he has bigger things to worry about than Cersei Lannister, which, yeah, he does, but you do also have to kind of worry about Cersei Lannister.
But because, I mean, you know, what you said about him being for the people, that's what she's been doing this whole time too. I mean, when she was outside of Westeros, she was trying to help the people.
Right.
And if she's able to succeed in doing that in Westeros and knocking Cersei out, they can ultimately go on from there.
I worry though, because we see her keep on getting more arrogant in, you know, this show, is she going to lose sight of that? I mean, there's the power corrupts. So is she
absolute power corrupts absolute?
Well,
I think she's gonna realize
rough start.
she's getting knocked out.
I think she's frustrated. Don't you? I mean, she could have gone in there and taken King's Landing. Like, she never even had to stop at Dragonstone. She could have gone directly to King's Landing and taken it like that.
Right,
like, this war could be done. But because she doesn't, like Tyrion said, doesn't want to be Queen of the Ashes. You know, she's waiting when this could all be over, and I think that has to be frustrating because it could be over, and she doesn't even know what she's lost yet at this point, and I think it's going to be even more frustrating for her in the future.
I think the other thing is that at the beginning of this season, it looked like, you know, Cersei was hopeless. I mean, really, you know. And this episode in particular shows how
she's great.
Yes, I mean she's just like a force that you can never never discount.
Down,
Well, I think at the beginning of the season, I think most of us as viewers thought, how are they going to add conflict to this? Because Dany can just steamroll over everything. You know, she has dragons, she has Dothraki, she has the Unsullied. Like, there's nothing standing in her way at that point. She had the Martells, she had the Tyrells, like, she had half the Greyjoys. Like, what was to stop her? And it just seemed like this was inevitable. And now we're seeing that the scales were tipped so much in her favor. And I think what's actually happening is that what Cersei has in abundance, Dany is lacking, and that is a tactical military advisor.
And
Because
ruthlessness.
but Tyrion, for all that he knows the politics of Westeros, he's never really been a general. Like he led people into the battle of the Blackwater, but
Right.
the battle had arrived at his door. He didn't really have to plan for it. He never had to plan an invasion.
Yeah.
And when she was in Essos, Dany, she had Ser Jorah, who was a military man. She had Dario Naharis, who was a military man, and she doesn't have those military minds with her now. And I think that that's really showing, because there are things that Tyrion's just not thinking about. There are pieces on the board that he's not considering.
I wonder if Sir Davos will have some role, because of course that was his
Yeah.
forte.
Well, I think, I think that we are going to see that will change, because right now she has Jon Snow and Sir Davos there. Sir Davos, we know, has more of a military kind of planning kind of mind. John's seen his fair share of battles. And not only that, Ser Jorah's coming back.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
those scales
Yeah.
should be evened
Yeah.
out a little bit in that regard, I hope, by the next episode.
Yeah.
Or, it's closer. We're almost halfway through.
Really?
Yeah.
We are, because there's only going to be 7.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So what did we think about the conversation between Melisandre and Varys up on that cliff? I think we can all understand why maybe Mel wasn't part of that welcoming party.
I had a weird dream the night before that Varys was going to die. So that was a little, that was sketchy to me. I was creeped out. I was very creeped out by that scene.
Right. So one of the things I liked about that, though, was that Mel showed remorse for some of the decisions she made. And I have to think that's about Shireen. Right?
Oh, yeah.
She's really redeeming herself in my mind, I think. And what she said about bringing fire and ice together.
Yeah.
Like, she has such a bigger role in this, I think, than we can see.
I agree, and I think that whatever she's going to Volantis for, maybe this is the last time we see Mel this season, but I think that she's going to Volantis for a reason, and when she comes back, we'll know what that reason was. But I'm sure she'll come back with something, that'll help us with the fight against the Night King and the Long Night.
I was really interested in how the knowledge of what really happened to Jon Snow is still being so tightly held. He wouldn't let Sir Davos tell, and neither Melisandre wouldn't.
I mean, why is that? Because they would seem absolutely even crazier if they were like, he was killed and he came back from the dead. Oh, and there's Night Walker. He's not greater than dead. So
yeah. Let me tell you, I've come back to but it was interesting to me. I mean,
They're playing
she
holding
told
close.
no one.
Yeah, holding close.
And then
to the
Dany
chest.
tried to ask about it to Tyrion, and he just said, "Oh, give them their revelries."
Yes, their flights are fancy.
Exploring up north.
Right, but one of the things that I found a little bit frustrating between the conversations between Dany and Jon, where here Jon is, which it does sound crazy. There's White Walkers, there's armies of the dead. They're gonna come and kill us all. It does sound completely insane.
Yeah.
However, she performed a blood magic ritual to hatch 3 dragons and some
Exactly.
stones. And she can walk through fire. So they discount somebody else's mythological.
So they're not mentioning these important facts to one another.
Yeah. No.
I mean, he's trying to get her to believe about the White Walkers. But
Right. Well, and they're at a point right now where they completely don't trust each other, don't know each other. Their only link is Tyrion, and who they both, I think, don't feel. I don't think either one of them feel 100% about Tyrion.
Well,
I think So I feel like there's reason for them to kind of play it cautious.
But in Tyrion too, he had to be the one to actually tell Jon she does care about the people. She freed slaves, because the way she comes off is as if she's like going to be another Cersei, another I just want the throne, I am the queen.
Right.
So I can understand where Jon's like, okay, this woman's crazy, another, but Tyrion had to be the one to say like, listen, she actually cares about the people. She's not my sister. And I don't know if he's entirely right. I can see her kind of going down that other path.
Well, and
Right.
it's also, I am relieved that somebody's going to start mining the dragons.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad that like that got accomplished. Or, you know, like, hey, you can have this stuff that we have in the basement that we're not paying any attention. You know?
It's a token gesture that we're
Yeah, I
giving
mean,
to
you're right. And Tyrion was right. It's something she could give that cost her nothing. So we saw Theon again. It was only briefly, but that was kind of sad, huh? Yeah, dragged up to the deck, and his people
No
do not
respect.
respect him
He
at
gets no
all.
respect.
No.
His arc, is he just going to be like the symbol of total failure? Or, I mean, why didn't they kill him?
I know. I can't believe that his arc is just going to continue like this. He has to have some kind of.
Does he?
I don't know. Maybe not.
Game of Thrones.
He could just continue to be sad and make us sad.
He's going to
for.
assassinate Euron.
Well, he's
I don't
pretty
know.
damaged.
I mean, we have 10 more episodes to go. I hope
Yes.
it's not 10 more episodes of depressing.
Physically and mentally.
Yeah, physically.
Yeah.
He's very
Yeah,
damaged.
right,
Yeah. So I don't think we can expect too many like big acts of heroism, but I think there's certainly things he can do to
He
contribute.
brought it upon himself from the get-go. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, probably wasn't a very good idea to betray the Starks and take Winterfell and kill all those people, you know.
Yeah.
So Euron got a hero's welcome in King's Landing. It kind of shows you like the people are just looking to be entertained, kind of, because not that long ago they were spitting and booing at Cersei.
That's what Jamie said.
Which is Jamie said, and then Euron followed that up with, well, they just really kind of enjoy severed heads, and he's right. They just want the entertainment. They don't really. I don't think the people necessarily. Do the people necessarily care who's sitting on the Iron Throne?
It's all the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's if it's Tommen, if it's Joffrey, if it's Robert, if it's Aerys, like they're just kind of in it for the entertainment value, it seems. So I think that once they see dragons flying on the horizon, though, they might be more entertained by that than they would be by Cersei, and so their alliance might change, but allegiance might change. Ilaria and Tyene were delivered to Cersei. And Cersei promised Euron he would get rewarded, but she added a little caveat to that.
Right.
And when the war is won, which could be forever, and it could be, he could die. She's just kind of. But Euron doesn't seem
worried about it.
He doesn't seem worried about it.
No.
And he was having some fun with Jamie.
Poor
Jamie.
Jamie.
Poor Jamie. He should just go love another woman.
Losing more parts to him.
Yeah.
The hand he was playing with his hand, it was so symbolic of.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is. For a man who broke a vow to save a kingdom, he's not necessarily making like the honorable choices now. But I don't think in this situation he can really tell what the honorable choices are. I think he's kind of in like a rock and a hard place right now.
Yeah, it's so personal to him too.
Well,
it's
if I don't know if you want to jump ahead, but the final conversation with Elena
Oh,
really
gosh.
gets to the heart of that.
It does.
She
She really gave it. I mean, that was so hands down this series. The best death of a beloved character.
Yes.
Of all the characters we have loved and lost,
There's a lot of
that was like the one she died the best.
He did, and he probably stood there and went, I wish I'd given her that other poison.
What I loved about the death, he was talking about everything Cersei wanted to do to her, and then the fact that she just dropped that truth about Joffrey after she was dying. They couldn't extol any revenge on her for what she did.
Yeah.
They gave the wine. There's no other way she could die.
Yeah.
And Cersei's going to be so mad that she couldn't revenge her son's death.
Right.
Well, because her idea of justice is pretty harsh.
It's just tying you down in a cave and
watch
kissing
your daughter die.
with poison.
And change the torches every few
Oh,
hours.
So she doesn't miss a thing.
It's funny because I was scared of what the Queen's justice was going to be, and I was imagining what would it be, and I feel like every time I imagine a horrible scenario, the show is worse. And I was watching that whole scene going, Cersei's lips are like really bright pink.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like she never
I
wears
noticed that
lipstick
too,
like
yeah.
that. Like this is really obvious. And then, but I was like not putting it together. And then when
I
she
did
kissed her, I was like, oh my god.
I had actually, it had bothered me. I had been looking at her thinking,
Right.
did she get liposuction?
What did she do to her lips? Why are they so pink? And then I was like, oh. Yeah. And it was really, and her daughter had been murdered, so it's not
Right.
like this came out of nowhere.
Right.
But the idea that Ilaria is going to
Have to suffer.
be chained to a wall and watch, and then is expected to be there for the rest of her days, and they're not going to move her daughter out of. I mean,
Yeah.
that is cruel
Yeah.
and unusual. That is imaginative.
Your daughter's rotting body. Now, who
Yeah.
are the writers of this show again?
Yeah, these people, I don't know. I thought one of the Cersei seems to still be in a lot of pain over the death of Marcella, which I thought was interesting because she seemed to get over Tommen unless she's in some kind of like state that
she
we
was
don't.
really responsible for Tom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then she was like, he betrayed
Well,
us.
maybe she's in denial about
She-
that. Like,
she might
she's
be.
just put that aside.
But she was in a lot of pain about Joffrey. But I thought one of the interesting things that she said to Ilaria as she was giving her, was she said that mothers aren't supposed to have their favorites, but we're only human. And I thought, was Marcella must have been her favorite.
Yes,
you
only
know?
daughter.
Her only daughter, and Joffrey was crazy and she knew it, and Tommen she thought was weak. So yeah, I think her sweet Marcella was her favorite.
Well, that's why another reason why she hated Tyrion so much
Yeah.
too. When Marcella went away.
Yeah, because he bartered for
Yeah.
Marcella to go to Dorne and to
Yeah.
marry a Dornish prince, and
I think that more so than maybe the death of Joffrey is.
Well, even
Yeah.
for Jamie to learn that his brother's in exile and on the other side, and he's innocent of killing Joffrey.
yeah. So all that he thought he knew about how bad Tyrion. I mean, he knows that Tyrion killed their father. Of course, Tyrion had his own baggage and reasons for that. But now he knows that Tyrion is innocent of killing Joffrey. Maybe that'll change some of the ways he thinks in the future. Like, maybe he's not going to want, if he sees Tyrion on a battlefield, he probably won't be gunning for him. Yeah. He's not going to think, oh, he killed my son. So that'll be interesting. So Jamie and Cersei reconnected in this episode. Very, very sweet. So Cersei has no problem flaunting their relationship now, which I think is kind of interesting. It's kind of, I'm queen, so I can do whatever I want. However, she's queen based on the fact that she was married to Robert Baratheon and was mother of his children, theoretically, or supposedly. and her two sons were on, that's part of like the strength, but maybe it's now that she has this, she just doesn't care.
Oh, no one can take this from
No,
her.
no.
That's just a
She just kind of took
detail.
it. But I did like seeing her with the head of the Iron Bank of Bravos. They're coming to get what's owed to them. And I thought this was really interesting, watching the second time, because she's saying, just wait 2 weeks and you're going to have your gold. And at that time I was like, that's kind of a interesting, like that's a big promise to make. And then, she knew what they were going to do with Highgarden. She's going to have Highgarden's gold. Yeah. So they were playing like a long con with this. Like they knew what they were going to do. Which I think, maybe we should talk about the sack of Casterly Rock a little bit. It's a little out of chronological order, but so I always thought, in the first 2 episodes, that it was kind of interesting that Tyrion was like, "We've got to take the rock," because to me, I was like, well, Jaime and Cersei aren't there. Taking the rock is really symbolic. What does taking the rock accomplish? And it felt like it was more personal for him, like he wanted to take the rock for him. And now he had a great plan going in through the sewers and coming in that way. Great plan. I feel like if that whole Lannister horde had been there, the Unsullied might have still been like kind of really outnumbered though. But now they're stuck there. I mean, Jaime and Cersei outplayed Tyrion.
Mm.
I mean, so you have these three siblings who all, sat at Tywin Lannister's knee and learned scheming and planning from him. And right now, Tyrion, has always been unquestionably the smartest, most capable one, but he is getting outmaneuvered by his sister and his brother. Because the Rock meant nothing. And now they have their Unsullied forces there, and the Unsullied are stuck there. They will have to march across Westeros to get back.
Yeah.
I think
Things aren't going well.
things aren't going well. I think
No.
Tyrion is giving some bad advice here. There was no need to go after the Rock, and it's empty of resources. Their mines are depleted. They emptied this. I mean, he couldn't have known. Nobody could have known they would empty the larders so that they would be forced to give it up. They would have taken it just to abandon it. But that's what a waste of resources. Losing more fleet, losing more ships, losing the Unsullied for who knows how long. Dany is not in a good place right now. Not at all.
Still got dragons.
She still has the dragons. I mean,
Which is
And
why
the
I'm thinking
Dothraki.
she might just want to go and say, I don't care if I'm Queen of the Ashes. Let's just...
She'll get
this
Jon Snow
done."
too. They'll form an alliance.
Well, but he does not have ships.
he does
Yes.
not have ships,
Yes.
and he can't afford to bring his army down from the
Yeah.
north because there's still a
And
threat
nor
there.
will he.
Nor will he. He might help her out with saying, okay, here's what you should do. This would be my advice. Or maybe he'll leave Davos there with her to advise her or help her. But there's really not that much that Jon Snow can do for her in terms of resources. He can't give her an army.
No.
I mean, she has the Dothraki, but part of their plan was to use the Westerosi as to not tap into the xenophobic.
Yes.
and now they're out of Westerosi army. They've got all they have now is
Now
the
they just have the
Dothraki.
foreign invaders.
Yep, exactly.
So two Stark children got back together.
They sure did. And how about that, Sansa?
That was my least
She
favorite
was,
scene.
Yeah,
but
that
Sansa was running.
uncomfortable.
Sansa was running stuff though. At
Yes.
that when we
Yeah.
came in, and she was
Very
planning for
capable.
very
Oh, yeah.
capable to go. Planning for the food, planning for noticing that the armor wasn't being crafted in a way that would hold up for the winter. Just handling stuff. Then you get a scene with her and Littlefinger, which I kind of am like, why does he have to be around?
So obnoxious.
He is creepy.
And she knows how to handle him, though, for the most part.
But it's still like he's mentoring to her in this kind of creepy way.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want it, though.
And
She keeps shutting him down.
Yeah.
Exactly.
She did listen
She
to
said
his,
the last word.
his speech though, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that was more so that they could have him deliver the speech than her actually.
Because he's always the good, what was that one? I think it was season 1, where chaos is a ladder.
Oh, yeah, that
He
was
always has to
like
get one of those,
season 3 or
poignant-
season 2. Yeah, it was a chaos in the
poignant,
ladder, and
yeah.
I have to climb. Yeah, and he always seems to get those lines that are
Right.
But Bran came back, and one of the things that Liz and I noticed in the rewatch was here you have Sansa and Bran being reconnected, and Sansa is sobbing so happy to see him, and Bran's just stone faced.
Yeah.
And my reasoning for that was, well, Sansa's been missing him, but he's been watching Sansa. He knows what's been going on in her life. She has no idea what's been
Well,
going
you
on.
mentioned her wedding dress.
That was creepy though to me.
He got into that way too quickly.
That was he was I know every horrible thing that's happened to you. It was whoa, first of all, no brother should ever have to know that about their sister. So, that's horrible for him to have had those visions, and now she knows that he had those visions. And what kind of turmoil does that cause inside? I mean, that was
There's
ripping the Band-Aid off that wound.
and he showed no emotion in how he delivered that too.
Yeah.
He wasn't. He didn't say sorry or
So
show
creepy.
his concern.
Yeah.
He was just so stone faced.
Yeah, I mean, he did say it's something along the lines of it was unfortunate that it had to happen here in our home.
Yeah.
But he wasn't
No, yeah.
oh my God, Sansa, I'm so,
He's almost
yeah.
like a human.
Yeah. He's almost like a computer because he's processing through all this data through the Weirwood internet connection when he does, and he's just like a machine. But he did, one of the things that he did mention that I thought was, I need to speak to John.
Yeah.
Yes,
You're
you
going to tell
know.
John who he really is?
I think that's probably probably what he's getting at, which, right now we don't know when John will get that revelation because he's in Dragonstone, and who knows when he'll
season 8 maybe.
Right? And who knows when he'll end up going back to Winterfell, because mining the dragon glass and forging the weapons is a pretty big job.
Yeah.
And being a semi-prisoner there.
Yeah, he's kind of a prisoner, isn't he?
I think we saw at the end of this that he's going to be able to go now. At the beginning, he was.
I think that Dany will. I don't think that she wants to have a negative relationship with him. I think especially once she finds out what happens with the Tyrells and that
she cannot afford to have a negative relationship.
She can't afford to have a negative. She's going to need him more than she realizes now. But I think.
Now, was that a spark of respect between them, or a spark of potential romance?
Well, I think we have to discuss this because there's a lot of theories based on some book stuff that John and Dany will eventually end up together. And I kind of was nervous about them meeting because I was like, I just don't see John and Dany having chemistry. I just don't see it. So I think there were things that they were trying to do to bring us to that point, and I think having them be adversarial in the beginning is kind of like the Pride and Prejudice method of starting a romance where you have these two characters that don't like each other at all, aren't interested in each other at all, and then eventually
but usually
begrudgingly build respect for each other.
More chemistry.
Yeah,
I don't see any chemistry between those two at all.
I do think though that Dany showed curiosity in John, which I think is a first step, and there was that part where when they had their one-on-one on that very large staircase where, they were talking and he was saying, oh, Tyrion likes to talk, and she said, we all like what we're good at, and Jon Snow said, I don't, and they cut to her giving him a little look, what does that mean? And then when he was walking away after that encounter, she kind of turns her head and watches him walk. So they're showing that she's curious about him.
Right.
But yeah, and I don't know if it's because, not that Daenerys certainly isn't free of emotion, but she does have a very composed, very stone-like, especially when she's dealing with other rulers or other potential adversaries or potential whatever, that she just doesn't seem to be a romantically inclined person. And I think we have high expectations of the woman who might end up with Jon Snow because we liked him with Ygritte, right? So we need to have a worthy follow up if that's going to happen, and it feels like right now he wouldn't be inclined at all to be romantically interested in Dany. He doesn't even seem to be remotely interested in her. Never mind their chemistry as actors. I think there are fractions of the Game of Thrones fandom that are actually hoping he ends up with Sansa, since they aren't actually brother and sister. And I actually think he has a little bit more chemistry with Sophie Turner than he does with Emilia Clarke. Yeah. So one of the things that is not really plot related that I keep noticing is that Sophie Turner got way taller than anybody anticipated.
I noticed in the scene where she's walking through the courtyard, sort of saying, "Oh, we need more grain. We need more of this." And all the men were following her that she was the tallest.
Yeah, she's towering over everybody. She got way. I mean, I'd like to see her stand next to Brienne. I think to see how tall is she really? But she must be. I mean, she must be 5'10" or more, right? I mean, she's
very tall.
She's very tall.
She is. That just made me think too. What's going to be like when Arya and Sansa, because now she just had it with her, reunited with her younger brother, which was so bizarre, and he's no longer who he was. He's a three-eyed raven, and he's almost not human anymore. He's definitely not Bronn. But so when she sees Arya, who's gone with she was with the man of many faces, so
it was sad.
She's not the same person.
Arya Khan in this episode.
I was thinking about their potential reaction towards each other too, because Arya hasn't seen Sansa since she was in love with Joffrey, and she was this terrible person.
Right.
I mean, she did a complete 180 from who she was when Arya knew her. So I think she's going to be a little timid when she goes in. She was awful.
Well, but now Arya's turned into a full-blown psychopathic killer.
That's what I'm saying. Arya is now no longer Arya. I mean, Sansa had to undergo like normal
Normal character
maturation,
progression.
and
Yeah,
like, but
yeah.
Arya is no longer Arya. It's just
Mhm.
like Bronn. So we'll see. I just think it'll be like another one where like Sansa's like, what's happening to all my younger siblings?
Right, because we had this whole like, you remember in the trailer where she says the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives, but her pack is way different
Kind
than
of
she ever
deranged.
intended that her pack would be. Yeah, and I think that should be pretty interesting. You know, it is kind of like she had the warmest, reunited with John.
With
Was
John,
was
yeah,
a much
definitely.
warmer scene,
Yeah.
and she and John never got along.
Yeah, so
But
that
it was, it's a much more warm scene last season.
But I think, so she was trying, I think, Bran showed up and she's sort of like, oh, okay, now you're the Lord of Winterfell. And he's like, no. I think that she's the only surviving Stark that
Has
is
it all
competent
together.
to
Sure.
Yeah.
to take that up.
I still think that John doesn't actually want it, and that I think that once this threat is faced, the
Exactly.
Long Night and the White Walkers, that
What?
he probably would be like, all right, I'm done.
I don't really know how how the kingdoms would get handed on, but as the as the son of Lyanna, what claim that would give him?
Well, so as the son of Lyanna and Rhaegar, the line of succession would have gone Aerys, Rhaegar, and then Rhaegar's children. That's how the line of succession would work. So, because if he's the true-born son of Lyanna Stark, which it's
there's a
theorized
possibility,
that because Targaryens used to take more than one wife,
Mhm.
that maybe Rhaegar did take more than one wife, and he did marry Lyanna Stark.
Mhm.
But how would we know that? He could still be the bastard son of Rhaegar and
That's true.
Lyanna,
Yeah.
which would mean that he wouldn't.
Bran probably saw it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Bran knows. Maybe there's like a secret marriage certificate somewhere in the Tower of Joy that nobody ever found. But so it depends. Is he the legitimate son of Rhaegar, or is he the illegitimate son of Rhaegar? It might not matter though if he's a better ruler than Dany, but he would still become before, as a true-born son, he would become before Dany in the line of succession.
Mhm.
So. That's why last time it was like, ooh, is she going to see him as a threat, or is she going to see him as a
When she finds that out, we'll see.
Yeah, I guess
Maybe
we
the
will.
marriage certificate is in that big pile of scrolls.
Yeah,
Sam-
Samuel Tarly will just come upon it.
Those
Like,
moldy
yeah.
books. That's
Yeah. So we didn't get to talk about Sam that much, but good for Sam for sharing some joy. It's awful. We're already almost out of time, and I feel like we could probably talk about this for like an hour and a half. They're just getting so much more involved, and things are happening so quickly. So the next episode is entitled "The Spoils of War," and we got some scenes, kind of quick cuts. You couldn't really tell what was happening in scenes. So I think that we're going to see some stuff that they don't want to give away. I think when they do those like quick cut trailers where it's like everything's happening real fast and it's not really showing anything.
I just finished the episode in my
Yeah.
car, so I didn't watch what's happening
It was
next.
really like they didn't
Give
reveal
away
anything.
anything.
They didn't give away anything, which leads me to believe that this is going to might be a pretty big episode. I don't really know what to expect, except that I think gold will be delivered to the Iron Bank of Bravos. So let's go through our favorite moments. Linda?
I would have to say the scene with Olenna.
Oh yeah.
Definitely my favorite. But Sam, it's always a little more uplifting, the scenes with him.
Yeah.
No.
We didn't mention that this was our first non-disgusting scene at the
I love his comment. I read the book. I read the instructions, and
Yeah.
I followed the
Yes,
instructions.
yes,
It's like,
yes,
so
yes.
perfect.
Yeah.
Shout out to Librarians.
Yeah.
What was your favorite scene, Liz?
I really liked the scene with Tyrion and Jon Snow. That was interesting, especially since they were really the only major characters that had previous encounters, and it was when Tyrion had first come to King's Landing at the very beginning of season 1. So, and they've both gone through so much, but I think they both still recognize this sort of kindred spirits on a certain level. So. It was interesting.
Shane?
I had to go with Elena's scene as well.
Yeah.
She
because it was hard because I love Olenna as a character, and I feel like they're doing a couple of things here. They're tightening up cast wise because they need to start focusing more on the things they want to focus on and to have all these extra characters. So they're culling some, there's a cull going on, and we might not be at the end of that. So
Don't get attached.
yeah, don't get attached. But there's also they're making it harder for Dany. But like my favorite part of that scene was she lost. She was dying, but she won. I just love that. I love that she just won.
Yeah.
Noelle?
Same.
Yeah. I mean, it was so good.
She was one of my favorite characters.
I loved her.
Too.
Yeah.
She's an awesome actress and everything. So.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Goodbye, Diana Rigg. Thank
We
you.
won't see her again.
Yeah. And 2 great houses in Westeros wiped out within 2 episodes. Or no more Tyrells, no more Martells, and I guess we'll see who's next. So thank you everybody for joining us for this Librarians of the Citadel Roundtable. Don't forget we will be live streaming the book part 3 for the Game of Thrones book talk on Wednesday night. So join us for that. It'll be a lot of fun. Those of you who have come this far in the show know that this is the part in which Ned Stark dies. So it's going to be interesting. We don't think Jennifer knows yet, so. So hopefully we'll see you then, and we'll see you next week.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, so much.
Oh,
Yeah.
circling.
So nobody called in with a response or something?
No,
It's still going.
it's still going.